Welcome to our podcast, Doing It Right. This podcast reveals authentic stories from successful leaders doing it right. It's about their journey to become a leader, their choices, motivations, and lessons. In essence, how they built successful personal brands. Your host is Valerie Sokolosky, author of 8 leadership books and nationally known as an authority on executive presence and personal branding. Let's get started. Here's Valerie.
So welcome again. And as always, I have my coffee. Do you? Let's get started and let's chat. I first of all want to thank my wardrobe people. First of all, Betty Ryder at Preston Center. You'll know the store because it's got a red door. Didn't know that was a rhyme. And Gems of Jaipur. I have to show you this. These are all real. Now, not only are the jewelry just all gorgeous, but there's a mission behind it because the jewelry sales go to a mission, and that is to feed the leper community in India. So jewelry with a purpose is what I would say. And you can see how to contact this wonderful woman and get some of the jewelry for yourself. Let me tell you about the show today. I'm so excited. Jeff Crilley is a friend of mine and owns these studios. I had Jeff on the show early on. You know, I'm in the 3rd year now. I can't even believe it. And early on, Jeff was on the show and he talked about what he was doing, starting the business. And I said, Jeff, it's time to come back because I now want to talk about you, the man, because you're so authentic. You have never, ever altered your integrity in all the years I've known you. And that's worth a story. Welcome, Jeff.
Welcome. Hey, I'm so thrilled to be here. And yes, I got to tell a story about how Valerie and I met.
Okay.
I was giving a speech over by the airport and talked for about 45 minutes. And you politely kind of waited and waited and waited. And then finally you came up to me and you said, I don't even know if I need a PR firm, but can we be friends? Do you remember this?
I do.
And I loved our rapport from day one. And who knew that it would lead to a television show? And, you know, your career is going, you know, skyrocketing.
And
so,
you know, you had just started the studio. In fact, I now call it my studio because this is the first place that I started. But you said to me, and I'll never forget this talks about his integrity and his heart, more importantly, his heart that leads to the integrity, which is, you said to me, Jeff, Valerie, you used to be in broadcasting. How many years ago? And then I said, oh, yes, and I did love it. And you said, well, why don't you get back and do a podcast? And I said, what's that?
Well, what makes Valerie so great is she is completely natural. Like you are exactly on TV as you are in real life. And I think some people get on TV and they pretend to be Diane Sawyer or somebody else. And she's the real deal, folks. Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet.
Well, talking about the real deal. So let's just start with where you are now. Mm-hmm. And where you came from business-wise, and then I'm going to ask you some very interesting questions.
Okay.
So just take us back in 2008, when you started this business. How did it happen?
So 2008, I'd written this book, went around like a crazy man, sold 70,000 copies of this book through speeches, and finally got the courage up to quit my day job at Fox 4, where I had been a reporter for 15 years and then 10 years of TV before that. Quit, very scary thing to do. You know, I liken it to the lion in the woods versus the lion at the zoo. The lion at the zoo gets a steak at 10 and 2. The lion in the jungle has to learn how to hunt to eat.
Great story.
So you know, I started it at my home, and I remember the prospective client would always say, well, should we meet at your office or mine? And I was like, no, let's meet at your office. I want to know what I'm promoting. I think now that they were actually kind of testing me to see if I was like a real PR firm, because if I was a real PR firm, I'd have no problem inviting them to.
Where's your office?
Yeah.
Where's your office? You don't do that anymore, by the way, do we?
So for the first couple years of the life of the company, we did not have an office. And I remember my daughter, Sarah, who's now my vice president, would jump in my little T-Bird, and we would drive around to Starbucks and, run this little company. And then we started hiring people, and now we take up 8,000 square feet at Lincoln Center. We're doing something like 90 different TV shows a month for a total of 300 episodes a month. We've got on paper something like 140 clients. 90 of them have TV shows, and then the other 50 want to get on the news. And so I'm incredibly blessed because I have this amazing team. I call it a Thank God It's Monday company.
What does that mean?
Thank God It's Monday. Most people say thank God it's Friday. We have a company where everybody loves each other. And one of my favorite things that happens during the day is lunchtime, because we have food catered in for my 20 plus another 10 or so. And I always leave the door to my office open, because in the break room, all the employees are gathering and eating and laughing. And the laughter gets so loud sometimes, I'm tempted to close the door because I'm often, entertaining someone. But I say to myself, no, don't close the door. I want people to know how happy a company this is. And so I feel like my primary job here is to be the gatekeeper. I'm the person who lets the clients in, and I'm the person who lets the employees in. And one bad employee can, ruin the vibe. And the same thing with clients. And so I'm very careful about weeding the garden and making sure all I'm doing is bringing in cool people. And I would say, knock on wood, so far I've been very successful.
Yes, you have. It's an incredible story. And entrepreneurs, I really want you to listen to some of the things. I always ask about your lessons learned, which we'll get to as we go along. I have a question just about that, Jeff, before we get into the you, which is, how do you reward employees? Like my wonderful producer, Derek, is sitting back here, and you've got people out in the back that are doing stuff. That's a lot to do, and people want to feel valued.
Yes.
So how do you do that?
So I've taken the role of, I'm the guy who gives out the compliments, and I've complimented Derek many, many times. In fact, if one of the clients says, oh my goodness, Derek was amazing, I'm always try to make a point of going up to Derek and saying, hey, I heard great things about this episode. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but thank you for moving heaven and earth to make it happen for the client. I've hired a bunch of pleasers, and so we all kind of work for praise.
I think most of us want to feel valued, right?
So we're all like little puppy dogs. Pet me, praise me.
When I do good.
Right, exactly. And then we also have some team building stuff. So in addition to, I guess, how do I reward employees? I think the everyday catering thing is a nice perk. I don't know how many companies do that. We also have team building Fridays, and so like once a month, and I'm not in charge of picking the event. Nobody wants to go to the boss's thing, so the employees pick their own activity, whether it's Top Golf or bowling or something fun, and there's team building, and the boss pays for it. And so I think my primary job is to pass out praise.
And you do that.
I try to.
Even to those of us that do the shows.
Yeah.
You're always saying, good show, or have you thought about? And I value that feedback. That's great. So you're very successful.
Thank you.
Jeff, what do you attribute your success to?
1,000% the team. There were times in the life of the company when this company was a sick company. I remember there was a time when there was 7 employees and we weren't getting along, and we had to bring in a workplace culture person to get 7 people to get along. And the truth was, it was just one employee who just wasn't a good fit. And I remember kind of tolerating it. And then one morning I'm walking across the parking lot to come to work, and I got this little knot in my stomach. I was anxious, and I said to myself, I don't want to come to work today. And even hearing myself say that, I was like, wow. If the boss doesn't want to come to work at his own company, this is a very sick company. And that was when I woke up and I said, I need to take my company back, whatever it takes. In fact, I'll tell a fun story. So I was my wife and I were going to Spain, and I'm not the guy who fires people at the company. I just, people have left the company, but I'm not the guy who does it, right? And so my then vice president was running the company. I'm just owning the company. And so I said to my then vice president, by the time I get back from Spain, this employee needs to be gone. And so I assumed that she would do it sometime during the 2-week period that my wife and I were in Spain. We're in the plane, about to take off. They're telling us to shut down our phones, and right before I shut down my phone, I got a one-word text from my then vice president. It just said, "Done." And I was like, oh my goodness.
Now I can fly.
I just was so elated. And then it's funny because I come back 2 weeks later to a completely different company.
Oh.
It was a completely different company. It was a happy little company. And I learned a lesson. It was like, man, just really be mindful, Jeff, because there's a vibe that happens at every company. And sometimes it can be a happy vibe, and sometimes it can be a toxic vibe. Mm-hmm. And you have to be mindful and never let yourself be hijacked by a bad employee. And I think a lot, and there's a lesson here.
There's a good lesson here.
Let's suppose you're a company owner and you have a hotshot salesperson.
Yes.
And this hotshot salesperson is just killing it every month, making the company a bunch of money. Mm-hmm. But this hotshot salesperson is also rude, a little bit of a workplace bully. What the boss will often do is say, well, this guy's my top salesperson. They're bringing in all this cash. I gotta keep him. What would I do without him? Mm-hmm. But the lesson is, you know what? You can find another salesperson who can step into those shoes. They may not be as good as the rock star that was a bully that you're escorting out of the building, but you will soon make it up, because the company will be a happier place and there'll be fewer people leaving and the attrition rate will go down. And we're at a unique time in the economy where pretty much if you can fog a mirror, you've got a job, right?
Yes, and yet right? People don't want them. Isn't that interesting?
I know. But for bosses everywhere, you really have to be mindful of how happy are you keeping your employees, because if they're not happy, they'll leave on you. And think about all of the wisdom and institutional learning that happened to get them up to speed from like, let's take Derek, for example. He's an amazing employee. He's learned, he came in with a skill set in the last few years that he's been with us. He's learned so much more. He's got rapport. If Derek decided he wasn't happy here and left, you would be very sad.
I would.
He's your
really
producer,
sad.
Right?
Yes.
And so, shame on me, Jeff Crilley, if I allow employees to get upset and leave, because talented employees need to stay in place.
That is so true. People are looking for not just bodies, but competent people.
Yes.
That share the values.
Absolutely.
How do you handle something that maybe an employee made a mistake or didn't do their wonderful stuff?
So Josh, who is my head of operations, what some people don't know is he has a master's degree in conflict resolution from SMU.
Oh, that helps.
Yeah, he actually is a brilliant mind when it comes to choosing the right words to convey information. Mm-hmm. And so if an employee messes up, it's not me who's running over and saying, hey, why did you mess up? It's Josh coming over, and Josh is I'm going to call not a manager, but a mentor. And so he comes over in a very nice way and say, hey, let's talk about, this mistake. How did this mistake happen? What led up to the mistake? What are some teachable moments here? What can we learn from this? I mean, mistakes happen. We get it.
The word we uses we.
Exactly. And I think together we all kind of sort out, okay, how do we troubleshoot this so it doesn't happen the next time?
That's great.
And so anyway, I love Josh for his heart and his ability to inspire people to want to do well. I think if I have any leadership qualities at all is I think the employees like me, and they wouldn't want to disappoint me.
They do.
So if I have any authority here at all, it's just I wouldn't want Jeff to ever be disappointed in me, and there's some wisdom in that as well. If you can grow a company, a happy company, where the employees respect the boss and want to do well for the boss, and never want to be that employee that disappoints the boss.
That's a good word. That's a good word. Because that's exactly what it is, kind of like a child with a parent. I'll never forget one of my children said, I just never want to disappoint you and Dad. And that just touched my heart. So the same thing can happen in a company.
Absolutely.
Jeff, let's go to you. So I was born. What I want to know is, what kind of a family life did you have, and how did you build the strong values that you have and demonstrate?
So my dad was a minister. He's semi-retired, living in Waco with my mom. They're in their 80s, and my dad is kind of the all-loving dad. Never raised his voice. In fact, I think one of the reasons I'm so sensitive is because I never heard raised voices
That's pretty
in my childhood,
wonderful.
Right? And so for me, criticism, it doesn't even have to be loud voices. Criticism to my ears sounds like fingernails on a blackboard. I just, whoa, I'm not used to criticizing. Everybody's supposed to love me, right? I'm little Jeffy from Detroit. So I think my father's all-loving leadership inspired the person that I want to be. I really want to be like my dad, you know.
How wonderful to have a role model. Not everyone does, so that's a blessing.
Thank you.
So he was a minister.
Yeah.
And how did that play out in your life?
This is an interesting story. So my father was kind of moving up in the Presbyterian Church, and the race riots in Detroit were in 1968. And my father had a choice to go to Denver or Detroit. And he chose Detroit because he felt like this city needed him. Denver, there was nothing going on in Denver, no problems at all. But what you saw on the news in 1968 was Detroit was burning down. They called it the National Guard. And so my father decided to move the little kiddos, I was 4 at the time, to Detroit. And because the church was buying a home for us, he said, it's not fair to live in some suburb. We need to live in the city proper.
Oh my goodness.
And so I lived at 7 Mile in Livernois, and to put that into perspective, Eminem, the rap artist, came out with a movie a few years ago about 8 Mile, and that was seen as a very dangerous avenue. Well, when I heard that, I was like, 8 Mile, that was practically the suburbs, because 9 Mile was the suburbs. I was like, try living at 7 Mile.
Wow.
The only thing more dangerous than 7 Mile was 6 Mile. Okay, so how it shaped me is if you took a picture of my kindergarten class, it was 50-50 white-black. If you took a picture of my 6th grade class, I was one of 2 white kids in the entire school. There was a white flight to the suburbs. And what it did for me was, one, I think it sharpened my skills on getting along. Right? If you're a minority in a school, you have to get along.
Isn't that interesting? It's kind of reversing you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I think everybody liked me. I never got beat up. I was a well-liked kid. And how it shaped me was, even to this day, I can go into a minority community and feel very much at home. And people pick up on an energy. If you seem awkward, if your energy is wrong, they, a person of a different color would recognize or pick up on that.
They would. I'm
completely comfortable in a minority community. I really am. And so I appreciate my father for giving me that gift. It allows me, and during my news career, I had to float between neighborhoods.
Sure.
and talk to, the person in the most dangerous neighborhood in Dallas or the person living in Highland Park, and float between, economic stratospheres, right?
Jeff, thank you for that. That says it all. You've lived it. You grew up with it, and then you lived it out, and you're still living it out. With the amount of tension that's going on now, let's just talk about that for a moment, and the divisiveness. You interview a ton of people, so do I. What are you sensing is happening positively to get rid of this ethnicity issue?
Yes.
What's working
I think it's...
And what isn't?
Well, one, I'm not a fan of what the media is doing, and I think the media is kind of stirring stuff up, and so
which media?
It's just, well, when I was in the news, you only had to watch one channel to find out what was going on.
Right.
Now you watch one channel and you're getting this slant. You're watching another channel, you're getting that slant, and so I would say what is making things better is little conversations that are happening in every office every single day. It's not something that the government mandates. It's not something the media can tell you how to do. It really takes little interactions with people of a different race.
Informal. Not let's all get together and talk.
Yes.
It's real. It's like me and you.
Like little kindnesses, right?
No kidding.
Just little kindnesses and courtesies and recognizing what Dr. King said so many years ago, that we should not be judged by the color of our skin, but the content of our character. And I hope we can get back to that. I hope I'm going to call it a modern day Dr. King will emerge that can help heal this nation, because it is frightening what's going on. And it does feel like, I'm going to share something with you. I remember on the day of September 11th, for a brief moment, we were all united because the United States was being attacked.
We were.
And I remember people coming out of the buildings covered with ash. So you actually couldn't tell white, black, Hispanic, Asian. You didn't know their race. We were one country for a brief moment, and even lawmakers from both sides of the aisle kind of put aside their partisan politics, and for a brief moment we were united as a country. And unfortunately that didn't last very long. A few weeks after September 11th, again we are pointing fingers and
to another ethnic group
or political party, or there's always I think in a way, God cries when he sees this happening.
I bet
right?
he does.
How is it that you people can't get it? I mean, we've been talking about this now for thousands of years, that love your neighbor, and so I think God cries.
I bet he does. Well, we're doing everything we can. You know what? One by one. I think that's a good message too. One person with one other person can make a difference.
Yes.
Because that ripple effect can go from those two people to more people to more people. And it's just opening your heart and being real. And you're right, I think God cries. So we want to make him happy. What's something no one knows about you, or very few?
I'm a hopeless romantic.
Are you?
So yeah. So
you want to buy this for your wife?
Hey, I could. So yeah, given the choice, I mean, some people would watch an action movie or a Star Wars sci-fi or something like that. I will take a romantic comedy every single day.
Is that
yes,
right?
I'm a hopeless romantic.
Would you tell my husband? I'll say, do we have to watch another blood and guts and CIA and war and
I'm always fascinated with the part of the movie where the spark turns into a flame. So in most romantic comedies, the boy and the girl hate each other initially. There's friction, right? And then eventually they're going to end up together. And so that spark, like, wow, they just kissed. Oh my goodness, the spark became a flame. That's my thing.
If your wife were here, your beautiful wife,
thank you,
what would she say bugs her the most?
About me?
Yes.
I'm not as tidy as she is. She, everything in the house has a place, right? The pillows go there. There's a little dent on the pillow. So I'm kind of a messy person, and I've always been a messy person. She allows me one room of the house, which is my little study, and I'm allowed to junk it up a little bit, but there's a limit.
And then shut the door.
And then she'll say, no. You're gonna clean out your stuff.
It's starting to creep under the door. You better do something, Jeff.
But I mean, to her credit, I love a neat home now, and so now if I go into a home and there's chaos going on, I'm thinking to myself, how can they live like this? But actually, that was how I used to live before I met Victoria.
Well, she's trained you.
She's trained me really well.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
If you had 3 wishes for your your life, not your business. Your business is exploding, and because it's got it's meeting a need. There's absolutely true. It's meeting a need. But for your life, what would be your 3 wishes?
Continued happiness. I mean, honestly, when people ask you, how are you happy? How happy are you 1 to 10? I'm always at a 10 or 11. I really am. I mean...
and you haven't always had it easy, Jeff.
No, I mean, as you know, I wake up super early, get up every morning at 5 to begin my day. I used to get up at 3. I don't recommend that. So now I get up at 5, and I send out an email that goes out to 34,000 journalists across the country, and it's a labor of love, and it's something that I do. It's my little crossword puzzle that I do, and it helps keep the company going. But I can honestly tell you, I have 0 stress in my life, and that's a blessing to me. So continued happiness. I think the other 2 wishes would be for continued health and happiness for my wife, and continued health and happiness for my kids, who both work for me. I see my daughter and son every single day, to be able to kind of grow this company together with a little spark in their eyes. We have a thing where my daughter will call me when I'm on the tollway, and she'll say, "Daddy, it's going to be a great day." And I'll say, "It's going to be the best day." Or my son will text me and say, it's going to be a great day. And
you've instilled that. You've instilled that into them.
Yeah. Well, for several years, I got divorced and the kids were up in Michigan. And so I could not see them but 4 times a year. I'd have to go to Michigan to see them. So for about 6 years, I'm separated from my kids. And I remember at one point, my daughter, who was very young, maybe 11, would stand on her back porch, and I'd stand on the back of my porch, and she would point at a star, and I would recognize the same star. I think it comes from a Disney film, and we would just long to be with each other. And so I'm saying that because there's no such thing as a bad day. When you're working with your kids every day, and went from 4 times a year to every single day, every day is a blessing, and we never take it for granted. And there are times when we disagree with each other, and have a healthy debate over how we should, steer the company. But it's always done with a great deal of love and affection, and we pinch ourselves every day that we get to work with each other.
Well, that's your lesson, another lesson, which is your gratitude. But you didn't always have it just apple and pie, which is what... There's not one guest on the show that I've ever had, and you, audience, know that I only have successful people who are doing it right, but by that I mean who are living their values and demonstrating, observable, and not being one thing one day and one thing another. And so when you instill that of who you are, then you put that into your children, and it becomes part of who they are. That's what's the most important. I've seen so many leaders, Jeff, who, as they climb the ladder, they feel like, I guess, they have to become. They have to do things differently. They have to make stronger decisions with less input, or whatever it is. So I bring that up because you've never done that, and most of the people on the show haven't. We all know we need other people, and we all know what living our values looks like. And boy, if you go against that, if the gut doesn't hurt, there's something wrong. There's something wrong.
Right.
So you've had a lot of people on your Jeff Crilley show, the Jeff Crilley show. Is there one that stands out that was that just really touched you?
Yes. Nick Vujicic. And
say that again.
Nick Vujicic, and we can run a clip. Derek will find a clip of him. He is an amazing motivational speaker, born without limbs, born without arms and legs. And he and I had an instant bromance. We instantly loved each other. He goes around and speaks on big stages in front of tens of thousands of people, and he's like a living proof that every life is precious. And his story was born without limbs. Parents raised him normally. He goes to school. He starts getting bullied. By age 11, he's about to commit suicide in the bathtub. And for the grace of God, he did not. By age 16, his mom is sharing with him a newspaper article about another person with no arms and no legs who I think went on to become an artist or something like that. And it caused him to have an epiphany and say, wow, there's another person like me. So I can either, live the rest of my life feeling sorry for myself, or I can use it for good. And so he dedicated his life to the Lord, and he goes off and reminds people, it doesn't matter that you got fired. It doesn't matter that you got a divorce. I mean, we've all have stuff and setbacks. And there's something magical, Valerie, about Nick saying it, because people lean in, and he's spoken all over the planet, and sometimes there's a translator because he's speaking in a foreign country, but everybody wants to hear his story. And I told him after we met, I said, I think God put you on the planet to unite the planet, because you have this gift of people want to hear your story. If he could become one of the highest paid motivational speakers on the planet with the hand that was dealt him, then what am I complaining about? And so,
Puts it in perspective.
the great news is that we've become such good friends that he is going to take over one of our studios downstairs, and he's going to start doing a show and interviewing people and creating his own television network.
Does he know the name of it yet?
I don't think he does.
Okay.
I think he's still working on it, but we're going to renovate all the studio that you used to broadcast from downstairs. We're going to gut the whole thing. We're going to turn it into a big Oprah studio where you can fit 50 people in there, and we can go into the cafeteria with an intern and say, hey, Nick is going to interview Emmett in 15 minutes. Finish your salad. Come on in. Come to be in the audience for Nick.
So real.
Yeah.
Just so real.
So he's been a real gift. And I'll tell you one more story about Nick. So I gave him PR services. I said, look, I won't charge you. I'll be your publicist. And he says, okay, well, that's very generous of you, Jeff. I've got I'm going to the Gaylord to be a part of the National Religious Broadcasters event. And they brought in people from all over the planet, and they had a big convention, and I was Nick's publicist. Well, in most cases, a publicist is trying to beg the media to come talk to their client. I was an order taker. I was pretty much saying, I can put you down between 10 and 10:30. And so just had a blast. He did 20 or 30 interviews, everything from major networks to podcasters. But then one day I'm there at the Gaylord with him, and I'm standing all alone. And Nick is off posing for pictures with his fans. And I'm just standing there beaming. And these two evangelists came over to me and said, what is going on with you? I mean, why are you standing here smiling? And I said, well, what's not to love? I get to work with Nick, and I get to work with my kids, and I've got this cool company. And they're like, we just see the face of God on your face. I mean, you're standing all alone, and you're just radiating this joy. And I said, wow, that's one of the highest compliments you could pay me. And they said, so tell me about your company. And I pulled out my phone, and I started showing them my shows. And they're like, this might be a God thing, because we're thinking about a TV show. We didn't know how we would do it. Can we check out your studios? So they came over to see our studios. And then 2 weeks later, they flew in from, I think, Florida to do 3 or 4 shows. And that was totally a God thing.
You
because,
bet it
right?
is.
They just came up to me. And so that lesson I learned that day is, you do have a choice. You can wake up with a smile on your face, or you can concentrate on the everything that is lacking in your life. But gosh, we're all so blessed. I mean, any day above ground, they say, is a good day. And, we're not promised tomorrow. We're not promised this afternoon. And so live every day to the fullest. And I say, radiate God's joy on your face.
Isn't that beautiful? Thank you for putting it out there, because what we do as human beings, what we put out there, is either going to attract people or repel them.
Yes.
And when you said they said to you, there was something about your face. When someone says there's something about you that, fill in the blank, you're coming from the right place. And you are, Jeff. And I want to just add one more thing, and this is me telling you personally. your company is such a unique gem within the industry because of all the things we've talked about. And I want the audience to know that when Jeff says, would you allow me to handle your PR? He doesn't just say that and have you sign a contract and say, I hope I can get you some, maybe, when, what if. He's able to do it. And it's a gift. And let me go back to that. Because, yes, you are blessed and it is a God's gift to you and you are giving it out to the world. But I want to talk also about your talent, because you've got a gift of tying in whatever a person does. It doesn't seem to matter what their industry is. You can find a connection to something on the news and make it happen. Let me give you an example. So you know that I have owned a leadership development firm for 25 years, and I do training programs and executive coaching. All right, well, that's the ocean topic, right? So Jeff said to me, you know what? You have 8 books, and some of them are on business etiquette and image, so I'm going to put you out there as the image and etiquette lady. And do you remember? I
Yes.
kind of laughed, and I also kind of thought, oh, well, that kind of sounds like it's coming down a little bit. I've really worked hard to get. And you said, oh, no, trust me. And audience, he puts me out on news, and I will get, this is the truth, I will get at least 10 national interviews across the country, and then others that follow. Just little old me on image and etiquette stuff. So, boy, you deliver. You deliver.
You're very kind. And Valerie makes me look good because, I can't tell you how many times she's been on the radio that I'm listening to her and saying, wow, I would never have thought to say that. That was brilliant. And sometimes they ask you random questions, so you can't prepare for every question that they might ask you. So you do a great job and you make me look good. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Bet.
Thanks for being on the show. I just had to have you back after, let's see, you were on the very first year. Maybe 4 months into it.
Wow.
And you've grown so much.
Thank you.
So check him out. Real News Network. What's the address?
So Real News PR is our main site, and there's the Real News Communications Network is our podcast or broadcast division.
So y'all come, you hear? Jeff, thank you.
Thank you. This was wonderful.
It's been a joy.
You bet.
And you come back next week when we will have another fabulous guest. Check out Jewels by Japor Gems. They're really beautiful. And Betty Ryder. This is my wardrobe, folks. See you next time.
Thanks for listening. To receive Valerie's voice, free monthly leadership tips, and to learn more about her leadership programs and coaching, visit her website, valerieandcompany.com. Next week, we'll be here again to inspire, engage, and equip you with teachable points of view from successful leaders who have been doing it right. Until then, lead authentically.